Hi, everyone. Thanks for not leaving and going to get coffee. I appreciate you staying. Um, so my name's Tanya Janka, and today I'm going to talk to you about something that I have noticed a lot during my 20 years in IT, and it is insecurity in information technology. So many times in my career, I have seen people act really illogically and in these weird ways, and I never understood it. And then I realized, oh, it's because people feel insecure, and then they act weirdly. And then thanks to people like Dr. Jessica Barker from earlier today, who do research into these things, when I started looking into this, it turns out that there's some things we can learn here about how we can do better. So I am a computer scientist. I am not the same type of scientist as her. Okay, so you know the About Me slide that everyone else does? I didn't understand why people used to do it. And then I understood it's the I'm qualified. Please listen to my opinions slide. So I implore you to listen to my qualifications and then evaluate my ideas accordingly. So I'm an application security evangelist. I'm like really excited about application security. I was a software developer for a long time, and then now I do ethical web app hackery. And I do a lot of talking and training of developers. And then I'm big into OWASP. I'm kind of obsessed. So not only do I have a chapter, but I also have an open source project because I'm pretty excited. And people have been paying me to be nerdy for over 2 decades. And that's it. Okay, next slide. Okay, so here's the thesis of the talk. It is not complicated at all. People do stupid things when they feel insecure. Things that are illogical, things that don't make sense. And you're like, why is that person doing that thing? It's because they feel insecure and they're lashing out. I feel most people can totally agree with this one. So this is the one where I'm going to show you a lot of slides and hope you agree. Conflict between the security team and the developers, so I've been development and I've been security, is not good, and it can cause a lot of friction, and it can make employees feel insecure, like job insecurity. So we're going to have a bunch of slides about that, and then, so when this happens, in my opinion, insecure software is often the result, and I feel we need to make some changes so that we can just make better software, because that is my current obsession. So let's go. Okay, warning. This is not talk about feelings. I'm not good at that. There's not going to be any kittens, or then we hold hands. There's if you maybe they'll be hugging later, but only if you buy me a drink. So this talk is about money basically, and about releasing software that's secure. It's about just doing our jobs way better. The fact that people might be happier at their job is a huge bonus, but I feel if we have everyone feeling terrible at work, we're not going to get a good high quality product at the end. But when I say things that you realize apply to you, you might feel bad. I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad. That's not I'm trying to shine light on things that sometimes we don't want to talk about, make us uncomfortable. Because we're not going to get better, we're not going to change if we always just pretend those things aren't happening. So I'm imploring you to try really, really hard not to feel too defensive. And if you want to later, you can tell me to F off. So far, it's gone really well. I did this talk somewhere else, and only one person got upset, but the next day, he apologized. It was great. So try your best. If you're feeling wonder where that's coming from. Okay, fine print. I say all of these as if they happened to me, but all of these examples happen to at least 5 different InfoSec people I know, because I didn't want to maybe it's just me. Also, don't blame my employer for what I say. Okay, how do I implement that security control? You should know. When I was a software developer, this is what my experience was repeatedly with the security team. It's over and over again. The first time I had a VA done on my code, a vulnerability assessment, they sent me this automated report from their tool that I now know they didn't know anything about, and I was like, what is this? What does all of this mean? I don't understand any of this. And they literally said you know, I thought you were good, you should know. And I was like, I don't know how to fix these things. And then they shamed me. They said, if you weren't such a shitty coder, you wouldn't have had all of that in the first place. And then I was like, because that was my baby I'd worked on for months. And it turns out that dude didn't know anything. He didn't know what the scanner meant. He didn't know what the results meant. He didn't even validate it. So he was acting like that because he felt insecure. And then you better believe it, I went around the security team from then on. Okay, so here's the extremely complicated outline of this talk. I'm going to tell you about problems for a little bit, and I'm going to tell you about solutions of things I've done in many workplaces that I've seen work. Let's go. Okay, so the main problem is the way many IT shops are run can create like feelings of job insecurity in employees. Okay, so what types of problems are there? Okay, so the developers didn't implement any security fixes. Don't worry, they said they'd fix it in the next release. No, we all know that's not true. Okay, so security testing, often, because that's what I do, it's performed so late that developers don't actually fix anything, or they resent the security team for showing up at the last minute and then presenting all these challenges so they can't release on time, or they do, but everyone's upset. They have to work all night. So let's look at specifics. Okay, developers. What have I seen a lot of developers do? Doing security testing without the security team, not even telling them about it at all, causing security incidents, finding security flaws, doing all of these things and just not telling the security team so they feel like a bunch of, like, don't get me wrong, I want developers to do security testing, but I want to know about it. Not cooperating with the security team, like so many times, like, we don't have time for you. We're doing important stuff. So that's not good. Ignoring security advice that we give them well-meaningly. Like we send them a big report and they're like, no, we checked the box, we did a VA, we're done now. No, that's not what the box means. Writing the check to me is not the part that I'm concerned about. Not even asking us for advice in the first place. Like so many times, so like I am an employee and I consult, and so many times, like in my office, I'll see like a development team trying to pay someone to go do a VA, and then the consulting company's like, Tanya, can you do it? I'm like, am I chopped liver? So that's not good. Clearly I'm sensitive. Okay, so security. So yeah, I've read security reports like that. Okay, so the security team quoting policies at developers, that's not helpful, or sending them unvalidated reports from static code analysis things that are 500 pages long. What does the security team do that can cause friction? So not giving usable security guidance to developers. I have seen this many times where the security team's like, oh, you want to know how to design your app well? And then they send them a link to NIST, to the website. I'm like, is that a joke? No one wants to read that. Unless they're like a policy analyst person. Like sending that to a developer is just, it's just like you could just send a picture of you giving them the finger and it would be kind of equivalent. Like it's completely unhelpful. So that's not good. Acting like a gate. Like, okay, I caught you, now I'm gonna stop you. And you have to jump through my 500 hoops, I'm not gonna explain them. I've had this happen a bunch of times. This is why before I joined the security team, I didn't think they were great. Adding project requirements, like security requirements, but then not explaining them. And then when you ask for explanation, they're like, because security. I actually had a meeting like 3 weeks ago, and this woman said to me, because security. Do you think that means something? Like, that's not an answer, guys. Okay, and when revealing issues, this is the thing that happened with my VA, they make developers feel incompetent. Sometimes people are less than sensitive when they give reports. Okay, so all of these types of frictions between these two teams can lead to insecurity in how people do their jobs, right? If every time you tell security something, they shame you and make you feel bad, you're not gonna tell them more stuff, right? Like if you notice something wrong, you don't wanna go tell them because every time you get in trouble. And if you're the security team and you feel like the developers are avoiding you, you feel they're going around you, you feel they don't respect any of your advice, like you start feeling really frustrated. And so when people feel insecure in their jobs, so this is where all of my studying came in. It turned out like there's so many studies on this, I didn't really have to do very much research at all. When people feel insecure in their jobs, they do a bunch of things. They do deviant behavior, moral disengagement, reduced job involvement, risk-taking behavior, and a reduction of organizational citizenship behavior, which I will explain because I didn't know what the heck that was. So imagine you're in the kitchen and you're pouring a coffee and no one's around and you spill a little. So if you have good organizational citizenship behavior, you'll clean it. And if you feel really like a lot of job involvement, you're feeling good, you have good moral engagement, you might clean up the whole kitchen while you're at it because it's in your hand. You're like, you know what, I'm going to wipe down all the counter. But if you are feeling a lot of job insecurity, you don't have good organizational citizenship behavior, you'd be like, screw those guys. I'm not going to clean that. Do you think that person's going to write great code? Do you think that person's going to be like, I'm going to go the extra mile. The developer needed help with this, but I don't know it, and so I'm going to stay an hour late, and I'm going to research the security problem for them and help them fix it? No, that's not what that person's going to do, right? So in my opinion, this leads to insecure software and basically low-quality software. Oh yeah, that's what this slide said. I feel like you can't do security properly if you're not doing IT properly. And if you have a whole bunch of people that are feeling insecure and frustrated and really especially annoyed with all the other teams and acting in silos, you can't get really good software at the end. I'm hoping that at this point, people are on board with this idea. Everyone's really quiet, so it's hard to tell how you're feeling. Do you know those books from when you were little called Choose Your Own Adventure? Did they have those in Europe? Okay, so in North America, we had these books. And you would be like, you get to the cliff. And then you would get to choose your own adventure. You'd be like, A, I'm going to stay and fight the people chasing me. Or B, I jump off into the waterfall and swim away. And then you would decide, and then you would go to a different page in the book, depending upon what your choice was. So you guys kind of have a choose your own adventure here with my talk. And one is, we stay on the slide, and I have like a billion different examples of security and developers just being really crappy to each other, and then bad code happening after. Or we can continue on, and I can just tell you tons of solutions that I've implemented in lots of offices. So who wants to go for solutions? Okay, yes, yes, yes. Thank you. But really, I do have lots of examples, just in case. We can talk about it later over drinks. Okay. Good stuff. Leonardo DiCaprio is happy with us. Okay, so I have a 3-point plan, and then we're going to dig in really deep into all of these, especially number 1, because that's my favorites. Okay, so number 1, we're going to support the development team, the security team, and ideally, like, I don't work with other teams, but ideally, like, if you're management, you would do this for all the teams. So you would give them processes that actually work. No 3 weeks to get approval to do something that takes 2 hours. Processes that work, that get stuff done, so it's not painful. You'd give them tools, like resources, whatever it is that they need to get their job done. None of this like, oh, because security, you can't have Fiddler or something else that a developer might want. If they need something, figure out a way for them to have it safely. Training. And I don't mean random security awareness training, like don't click on this link. I mean, like, if you are a developer doing C#, could you have a secure coding course on C# for them? That would be great. Or secure design if you have people doing design. Do all of this basically to support them and build them up so they can do their jobs confidently. I think everyone should do this everywhere. But anyway, so step 1. Step 2, work to repair the relationship between this team and the other teams. And then 3, this is where the leadership comes into play, and they cannot accept poor behavior anymore. Because when you're in charge, you're leading whether you mean to or not. And if you talk trash about the QA team, you're leading that is acceptable behavior. So, but we'll go into it. Okay. You don't have an AppSec team? So I'm obsessed with application security. So if you don't have an application security team and you work in an enterprise, like a really big company or a government, I think you have to have one. The application security team is the part of the security team that actually understands how to code and actually understands application security and all of the activities that are part of an AppSec program, like code review or security testing, or all of those things that you can do to make sure your software is actually secure. Run. Don't walk. Seriously, go get one. And having someone that's actually dedicated to that instead of just hoping someone else will do it as another part of their job makes a whole huge, crazy difference. It's unbelievable. You might need to, it's hard to staff those, so you might need to lure super cool security-minded developers to your team, but that's okay. because you definitely want someone with a developer background. Okay, I'm ranting now. Anyway, application security is the cause of around 25% of security incidents. When you go back to your office, think about if you're spending 25% of your security budget on AppSec. And if you're not, why aren't you? Okay, enough ranting. Okay, so I was going to have a picture of me and my other talk, which is called Pushing Left Like a Boss, but I realized I'm wearing the same dress in that picture, so I redid this morning. So pushing left means starting security earlier and doing it the whole way through the system development lifecycle. So this is what developers live and breathe, the system development lifecycle, or SDLC. Basically, no matter what type of way you're making software, you always need requirements. You always have to design it. You have to plan out what you're going to build. You spend most of the time coding it, you do testing, and you do release. If you're doing agile, you do it a bunch of times. It doesn't matter. You have to actually do these things. And application security should come the whole way through. So if you are the security team and you're being called right 2 weeks before testing, there's a problem in your organization, and you need to implement a security-minded system development lifecycle. Because if you aren't doing this properly, you're definitely not going to end up with secure software at the end. Okay, oh yes, there we go. Okay, I couldn't help the Matrix joke. So one of the places where I worked, we did this, and this was the most brilliant thing I've ever seen, and everywhere I work now, I'm like, we must do this. So every time you start a new project, like a big, huge software development project, it doesn't matter if you're doing DevOps or whatever, you have an application security person assigned to that project, and that's the guy, which might be a woman. And the whole way through, whenever they need anything, that's your person, right? So, oh, you're doing requirements? Great, I'll make sure that you have all the stuff that I feel you need. Oh, you're doing design? Okay, maybe I like design. You're doing secure code review, I'll get someone else. And then I find the person for you and bring them back, right? All the way through to make sure the security is not this painful thing that slows your project down, that you have this resource available to you. I should note, you can't assign that person to 25 projects. That doesn't work. I know AppSec people are expensive because I'm one of them, but you can build your own, like I was saying, by fostering security champions. We'll get to that. Okay, I'm gonna stop now. Okay, what if we told software developers what we wanted from them instead of making them guess? Wouldn't that be crazy? I like to write up web app standards for security. Like, oh, you're doing a file upload. That's a risky business. Here's what I expect from you if you're going to do that. Great, you're going to encrypt that. I expect TLS 1.2. I don't want them to guess. I don't want them to ever have to be like, what security headers do I need? Oh, let me tell you, please let me tell you. Because I don't want anyone guessing. I don't want anyone, because that's what happens. They guess, and sometimes they get it right, and sometimes they get it wrong. And I don't ever want to pick up things that I could have just told them in the first place. Like, again, pushing left, starting earlier, it's just so much better. Yeah, let's go to the next one. So remember how we just made web app standards for security and API standards and database security standards? Because obviously we're going to do all of them, right? If you do mobile apps, you're going to do a mobile app security standard. What if we gave them lessons on it? So now I'm going to print out this boring thing that's in security jargon that developers don't understand. I'm going to write it in plain language, make it a wiki, add links to code samples that let the developers add stuff as they want to, and then give workshops on it. Teach it to them. Don't make it boring. I do not like being sent a link to something that's 20 pages long that's hard to read and then being like, you must memorize this. Like one of my offices, they're like, yeah, this is our coding guideline. It was this thick in a binder. So I tossed that crap on my desk and never read it, right? If you give them a 2-hour workshop or a 3-hour workshop that goes over all the things you want from them, it's just so much better. Okay. I worked somewhere once and I didn't cry. I did laugh hysterically like one of those crazy witches in a movie when they refer to cross-site request forgery and cross-site scripting as basically the same thing, which if you're into AppSec, they're not. They're very different, and that the mitigation was the same, which is even worse. Anyway, the security team, I feel, should never be allowed to respond to a request from developers for help by sending them a link to some crazy long document. So in Canada, we have this thing called ITSG 33, which I consider a swear word. It's kind of like NIST, only like Canadianized. it's essentially completely unreadable. Like, I'm a security person and I find it really hard. If you give that to a developer, like, I could just write it in Greek and it would be just as good. So you have to give specific advice, like specific examples of what you want from them. Developers are really smart, otherwise they wouldn't be able to make these big, beautiful, amazing things. But you still have to explain to them where you're coming from. So no talking over their head so they don't understand you so you feel smart. Because like whenever someone's doing that to me and they don't want to explain it further, I'm like, oh, it's because you don't know. Okay, I understand now. Okay, I've also seen this. We have a security standard. One of my offices, so a bunch of them, they said, we have a web app standard. I'm like, really, you do? Where is it? Give me a few days, I'll find it on the wiki. No, that's not acceptable. If you can't find it right now, then you don't have one. And they're like, no, we have one. So then, because sometimes I'm a jerk. Like most of the time I'm nice, but sometimes I really need to prove a point. And so I walked from developer's office to developer's office. I went to 20 developers in a row. Can you show me where the web app security standard is? They're like, what? No, we don't have one of those. 20 in a row. 20 for 20. No one knew. She's like, okay, you've made your point. Thank you. So no one wants a big group of old white men laughing at them. So you need to publish it to a place people can see it. There. Okay. See how angry this dude looks? It's because he thinks he has to know everything. When you are a perfectionist and you feel like your back's up against a wall and you have to know everything and you're on the spot, it's easy to become really ticked off. Like maybe not as angry as that guy, but like I've definitely seen people where they feel put on the spot or they just kind of lash out and they're super pissed. And there's no shame in saying you don't know and you'll go find out. I did that in a job interview like a few years ago, and I ended up being the candidate that won. She's like, because you said, you know what, I've programmed in all these languages, I don't know that one, but I'll know it by the time I start. And she's like, the fact that you actually admit it, because you could have lied, I wouldn't have known. But you actually told the truth, and I was like, I can trust this person. Tell them you don't know and ask for training. If there's no money for training, you can research things yourself on the internet. And if you still don't know, you can hire a consultant if you really need to. That's why they print us in the factory. It's so that when you're like, I just don't know, I've done all the stuff, hire a pro, bring them in, learn from all the things that they did. Is this still okay? You can still hear me? Learn from all their stuff so that you can do better next time, right? Never bring a consultant in and then don't learn from their stuff, because you don't want to have to hire them 20 times, right? You want to hire them once for that thing, you know, or make them do a different thing every time. Like in my opinion, you should learn from them. Yeah, so never leave something as unknown or ambiguous. Like if you don't know, it's totally okay to be like, I don't know, but how about we have a meeting offline and the two of us brainstorm this out and we invite Google. We get a whiteboard. Let's figure it out together. Don't just be like, yeah, you should use some authentication on that. And then just leave and just let them guess what that means, right? Like how they're going to do it. This is that when you do stuff like that, you end up with developers being like, yeah, I encrypted it. I base64 encoded it twice. Oh, okay, next slide. Another thing we can do is we can break security testing and other security activities into smaller pieces. So I'm really obsessed with DevOps lately, and you know, DevOps they're sprinting. They're going very fast. Security has to learn to sprint too. We can't just demand that they slow down for us. Developers, like, they're just gonna leave us behind if we were like, I need 3 weeks for you to stop so I can do static code analysis. And then I expect you to spend 3 weeks fixing all. No one's gonna do it. They're just not gonna do it. So instead, if you wanna do secure code analysis, what you could do is just do one small loop, just look for one thing. So I'm just gonna look for memory leaks. I'm just going to look for cross-site scripting. I'm just going to look for SQLi. Break it into small pieces and follow their SDLC like we discussed earlier. There's all sorts of things you can do to break security into smaller pieces and still get lots and lots of awesome shit done. I'm trying to see if there's more stuff here. Oh, yes. When you give security results, always tell them the answer. So I've seen a lot of people, like I've worked with a lot of consultants where they're like, yeah, you have SQLi on that field. Great. If they have it, it's because they don't know how to fix it, probably, right? Instead, why not like link to an OAuth cheat sheet that has the answer? or some other web page that you feel is good to help them. Like, don't send them just problems. Send them, like, do some research, send them mitigation advice that makes sense, that's written in developer words. Don't say, oh, your session ID is not ephemeral. Tell them you want a timeout. Tell them what you want their timeout to be. Be specific, be clear, and speak their language. Okay. Okay, so now Dr. Evil is going to bring us into repairing our relationship. So I'm hoping that by this point that things are going to be getting like a lot nicer between the two teams because they're both feeling more confident in their jobs. So let's go on. I love this. I don't always validate my test results, but when I do it in production. I have worked with so many security people where they press the button on app scan, and then this huge report that's 150 pages comes out, and then they press email, and then like, my job's done. No! You need to validate those results. You can absolutely never, I would like us to all make a rule, just a swear, a promise. I will never send unvalidated results to a developer and waste their time. If you have a report that is not good enough for you to read, it's not worth your time, it's not worth their time. And like, they resent you if you do that. Because I know, like, when I work with people and they're like, oh, I did a VA, and then they say, I'm like, no, you did a scan, and then you did nothing, you went for a coffee. Like, that's great, don't get me wrong, but like, that's not enough, you're not done. So we must validate. I think I'm doing good on time, eh? Yes. Okay. What if you provided, okay, so like I'm pretty excited about training, clearly. What if you provided free security training for developers? So developers are expected to know everything, right? And if I was a software developer, I'd be like, show me that new JavaScript framework. I want to make, well, I was never good at pretty front ends, but like I want to know how to make this faster. I want to know this new technology. Show me these new gems in Ruby. I'm not going to spend my one course per year that I'm allowed in my budget to buy a security course. I'm just not, because I'm a developer, I'm excited, right? So I think the development team would do really, or the security team would do really, really well to bring in a trainer and just gather all the developers around and just like mass educate them. Because developers usually do want to know everything. They do want to create awesome stuff, and they know that even if your app is beautiful, it does everything the client asked for, it's really, really efficient, if it is not secure, it's not the best. Right? And most of them want to make the best app. They would love to go on some free security training. But if you only get to pick one course all year, that's not going to be it for most of them. And you really want them all to know. So I suggest making it free. Okay. If you co-locate security and the development team, or with the rest of IT, they will get along better. Because it's really hard. It's really easy to send an email to someone in another city or across town whose face you've never seen and tell them to F off. But it is much more difficult if you know that then you have to go to the coffee machine and stand awkwardly next to them and be like, could you pass the sugar? Putting people on the same floor, putting them in the same place, it really, really helps, for real. I used to work somewhere and we were in a different building and I wanted to go see the developers. They're like, why would you do that? They're so mean. Oh my gosh, guys. We should not be working 20 kilometers away from them. Okay, another one. Try not to be concerned about who pays. I realize this is someone who's not a manager telling you this, but if you need a consultant, if you need your developers to have security training, if you need to buy them static code analysis tool because there's no open source one available, it's worth it if you actually need it, right? Because you need it, it's not for fun. You can consider it a long-term investment because as developers are doing more security activities, they're gonna get more awesome at it. You're getting your mandate done, right? You've kind of tricked them into doing your job a little bit, which I always love to do. But the last and most important reason why you shouldn't worry about who is paying is because all of this is cheaper than a breach, right? No matter what you're doing, it's way, 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 way better than a breach. Okay, next. Okay, so sometimes I've seen, so like a lot of places I've seen, they have gates. They have project gates, they have security gates. And basically they're like, no, you can't get past me until you jump through these hoops. This is not the way. This is not gonna go well. I've been in a lot of meetings where I hear people say no. Instead of saying no, what if instead we say, okay, That's not going to work really well. And here's why. And then explain it to them like they're an adult, but with words they understand. So like, if you base64 encode it twice, it's not the same as encryption, because that is a thing we do in capture the flag contests as like a level 1 type of challenge. It's really easy. You do need to encrypt it, but let me show you how. Let me teach you how. Let's work this out together, right? Instead of saying, no, you can't do that, but you can do this, and here's why you can't do that, and explain it, and don't say because security. Yeah, we can't just run off and say no. We can't. And I've caught myself doing this. I had a meeting like 3 years ago, and I was like the CISO, and temporarily management's not for me. But anyway, and someone was like, oh, can I see your risk register? And that's where we kept all of the vulnerabilities from all of our apps, and all of every single thing was on this one list. And before I even knew I did it, I just yelled, no! And then I was like, I mean, and then I explained the concept of need to know, and I explained that he could see the ones that applied to his directorate, and that I would be splitting it up in slices for each person as they needed to, and we would help them fix them, and then I apologized later. Probably shouldn't yell no at a big board meeting. But anyway, so I'm guilty of this one too. We should all try harder to say something other than no. Okay, so I don't mean regular job shadowing, I mean weird stuff Tanya made up. So what if when you had a security incident, you brought a developer with you on the incident the whole way through? Okay, good, thank you. Oh wow, I have lots of time, I'm awesome. So if you bring a developer with you on a security incident, you will open their eyes. The first time I went on a security incident, I was like, oh my God. And what if, you know, that pen tester that writes really bad mitigation advice and isn't always super cheerful? Next time they hand over their report, make them sit with the app team and make them fix bugs with them for 3 weeks. And then they'll see, oh, you know what? When I don't tell you all the fields that this problem is in, that's unhelpful. When I just like tell you, you have this and don't explain how to fix it, that's not helpful, right? When you walk a mile in each other's shoes, it really helps you see. And this can also help with recruiting for your AppSec team, which I am always looking to do. Okay, what if we gave developers security tools? They might use them. If you can find a safe way to give developers tools that they can use, like for instance, if like everyone does their development stuff differently, but if you can containerize some stuff, or if you can run some VMs, or if you can have like a virtualized environment where they can just play box and just pew, 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 you will be amazed at how much higher quality your stuff is going to be at the end. Because especially if you give them training. I remember the first time I did this on Office, I taught all of them how to use OWASP Zap, which is like the blue one with the little lightning bolt. And it's free, it's open source, it's great. And I had everyone giving me high fives, telling me like they'd be like, look at me, Tanya, no highs. High fives, good work. Oh, I found this, great, let's fix it. And like by the time stuff came to me, it was so much better. It was so great. And when you fix things earlier, like those little appearing arrows from earlier, my amazing graphics, it's cheaper and it's easier and it's faster. Finding a vulnerability at the end costs a lot. So this is a great way to find less. Okay, so remember we talked about giving developers security training and then making it free? Don't stop. Keep doing it. I've totally heard companies be like, we gave them security training 3 years ago. No, 3 years ago is not, like at least once a year, and preferably keep them engaged. Like Jess was saying earlier, prime them. Right? If you can have like a poster of something that says security, like we're decorating our security area where I work, and we've made an AppSec library where we invite everyone to come visit us, and then we trick them into borrowing books and learning about security. And we have lunch and learns, and like I want to do capture the flags and play games with them, and basically just keep them remembering that security is a priority and help them know that security is everybody's job, right? So don't stop. Don't just do a blitz and then be over with it. Okay. So another thing you can do, so who here has heard of OWASP? All right, who knew that there was an OWASP Vienna chapter? Oh, that's because it's sleepy. I would love it if you guys woke it up. A great thing that you can do, so in Canada we have this company called Shopify. I don't know if you've heard of it because they're pretty kind of They're the third biggest realtor online in the world. Like it's Amazon, it's Walmart, and then Shopify. But you wouldn't know it because every single, like if you go to a florist and they have a little shop, that's almost always Shopify. They have like 500,000 shops or something. And they host our OWASP chapter meetings. Why? So they can recruit the shit out of everyone that comes. It's a great way to recruit people, and because then their whole team goes and then they all learn for free, right? It's a great way to engage your teams. So what is OWASP? Okay, so we are a bunch of nerds, including me. So there's 40,000 official members, like 200,000 unofficial members, and we have chapters, like the one here that's a bit asleep, where you have meetups, like the DevOps meetup, like the JavaScript meetup, and you go to talks like this. I've done this talk at our meetup. Well, not this one yet. And the other thing we do is we have projects. So see DevSlop, that's my open source project with my friend Nicole, and it's just crappy DevOps. So we have all these messy microservices, and we teach people how to hack them, and we teach people how to fix them. And the idea is we're just teaching people. Why do people do this? Because they are the Care Bears of security. See my amazing graphic design again? So you can take advantage of this with your developers, right? So if you encourage them and teach them stuff and show them that they can do it and then give them all these free resources, like that is a great way for you to get them thinking about security. Okay, now we're on to part 3. Yoda wants us to use our words, and poor behavior is no longer acceptable. So this is the part where management, 10 minutes left. Management needs to speak out if they see something wrong. I mean, I think management should always say something, but at this point, if someone's still saying something, like, you need to lay the smack down. I don't know if you have that expression here, but it's bad. So even when it's uncomfortable, you still need to say something. Okay, so let's not blame people anymore. So if there's a security incident, don't be like, oh, it's Joe's crappy code. No, no, no. The only thing you should ever care about is what happened, how do we fix it, and how do we make sure that this never happened again? Swarm the problem, fix it as fast as possible, and then learn from the problem, and do everything you can to put in safeguards so that doesn't happen again. It doesn't matter if it was Joe, it doesn't matter who it was. So like, I do vulnerability assessments a lot, and then when I'm obsessed with like trends, so I like tracking things. I'm like, oh, what did we do wrong the most last year? Workshop time, right? So instead of being like, yeah, you know, I work at a place and they all suck at XYZ, I'm going to be like, guess what? It's workshop time about XYZ. And then I teach them so they do better. So try really hard to never say like, oh, that application's such a piece of garbage. I definitely hear that all the time. I hear that, oh, those developers suck. Those developers worked really, really hard on that app. That's their baby. If someone said something about my app, I'd be very angry with them. And like if you see a security person that has made a new security rule and you're like, oh, they're overbearing, they're paranoid, like they're ridiculous. That person's job is to protect your organization. And they think they're doing the best job they can, right? They think that we need that. That's why they did it. So everyone is well-intentioned when they come to work, and we should treat them like that. And everyone needs to vent sometimes, but that happens at home, that happens at the bar, that should not happen during your team meeting. If you are having a team meeting, and you are trash talking the other team during your team meeting, so of course, I've seen it where the person walks by and that's very bad. But even if like no one can hear you and you know no one can hear you and your team's just like, wow, that team is the worst. When you go have a meeting with them later, what do you think your body language is gonna be like? What do you think your language is gonna be like, right? Like, are you going to seem friendly? Are you gonna seem open if you guys just, you know, used their name as a swear word for the past long while? So like, this is not something that is going to get you a good, positive work culture. Okay, so I love Patrick Stewart. We're going to get married. He just doesn't know it yet because we've never met. I really like Star Trek. So everyone makes mistakes, but whenever possible, if you want to make friends at work, if you want to get along with other teams, always try to allow people to save face. Right? So I remember I was at a meeting a few weeks ago and this guy's like, you need TLS 2.0. And I'm like, do you think maybe you mean 1.2? He's like, no, it's 2.0. It just came out and that doesn't exist yet, in case you don't know. He's like, no, that's definitely it. And I was like, And so then after I was like, I think you made a mistake and blah, blah, blah. And we talked it out. And he's like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. I was thinking of something else. I'm so embarrassed. And I'm like, no, just send an email and just explain. And he's like, and he was really grateful that I didn't say, well, you're dumb and you don't know and I know. And get into an argument with him in front of the client. He was like, thank you. And he just wrote them. He's like, oh my gosh, sorry guys. I was thinking of this, the other thing. Of course it's this, blah, blah, blah. Everything's fine. And everything was great, right? But like I could have tried to make him look silly, right? And I didn't because I want to work with him again. Okay, so this is the part where leaders need to lead. So see him, how he has a sword, no one disrespects him. but really, when you are the boss or you're a team lead or you're just the most senior person on your team, you are leading your team. You're deciding where they go. And if you have a culture where, you know, everyone comes to work and they work hard and they laugh at the right times and they all get along and they treat everyone with respect, like you're leading them that way, right? You can't have some crappy leader that really sucks and have an environment like that. And you can lead them down too rather than up, right? So this is the part where like you have to set the positive example, even when you don't want to, right? Like sometimes like I'm really pissed about things and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go have a coffee by myself because I don't know. And I'm not saying that I never have ever made fun of anyone, but I don't do it at the office. So also you never know who can hear you. Just so many times, so many times I've seen people get hurt because cubicles are not very private. Okay, so this last one is for you. This one is for conferences. Who has seen this slide 500 times as security conference? So you know what is the best thing about, okay, so only one more time am I gonna talk about how awesome Jess is, but like, the keynote was positive. It told us we can do this. It told us how to do it. It was so great. Almost every conference I go to a lot of them, the keynote is, we're so screwed, let me tell you how screwed we are. No, please stop booking those. Don't book them anymore. I don't think we should book any talks ever again that say, we're so screwed, let me tell you how screwed we are, and offers no solutions. I don't think you get to be on the stage unless you have answers, unless you're gonna share, here's some things I tried and they worked. Or like, here's some problems, but like, I think we could possibly fix them like this. Like if someone's just like, we're so screwed, everything's so bad, everything's terrible, blah, blah, blah. Like don't let them on your stage, don't book them. Those people don't, like application security is really hard. InfoSec's really hard. Don't discourage us. Tell us we can do it. Show us how. And so with that, let's summarize, and then we will do questions. Number one, the most important one, support your development team, your security team, and hopefully all of IT with processes that actually work and are efficient. Training that is specific to what you actually need them to do. Resources so that they can confidently get their job done. Repair the relationship, and then don't accept any more bad behavior and lead your team to success. Thank you. Do we have any questions? Oh, you guys are being really shy. I spoke at the DevOps meetup last night, and it was like questions for literally a whole hour. Like I couldn't leave. I met her this morning. I'm not, like, just so you know.
She's lying.
She didn't ask me to say any of that.
Say all of the good things. Thank you for a great talk and for the kind words. My question was whether you ever have resistance from leadership in terms of implementing this stuff, and I thought you might. So I wondered if you had advice as to how to overcome that or try to encourage leadership to see the benefits of investing in this.
I would say 99% of the problem is the leadership usually. Like developers are like, I'm so excited, show me like your next deep dive into something security-wise. Like they're literally emailing me fan mail at work, like I'm so excited, when's the next thing? And then, you know, someone way up is like, I feel uncomfortable because I feel like Tanya's taking control away from me. And then they're like, I'm gonna cancel all your lunch and learns because I'm big baby. And so there's a lot of different ways to deal with that. And so sometimes what I do is I ask other teams to invite me to give lunch and learns. I do talks outside of work and I invite them all there. I would say the best thing to do, like that has worked the best for me, is I wrote this big report. So I was a CISO and we had a really big event, which I'm not allowed talking about. But anyway, it was a good event. It was a positive event. Basically, like, we had a bunch of incidents, and after I realized around 25% of them was AppSec related, and so I showed them, like, we could have totally avoided this, and I just did all this math to show them how I could make sure that like 80% of those incidents didn't happen for our next event. And they're like, how much is that going to cost? I'm like, just me. Like, I just let me do this all the time, so this management position I don't like. And then they just let me run wild for like 5 months. It was great. I started an AppSec program. I just showed them numbers, and that worked really well. And I let them review my talks and rewrite them into different words, because then it's their words instead of my words. This is a big deal with management. Like, I know that sounds condescending, but it's like, I'm gonna rewrite all of your slides, and it says the exact same thing but different. And they're like, I'm gonna change your picture. I'm like, yes, ma'am. You're right. That picture was terrible. And then I just, yes, we should definitely remove my name and put your name. That's cool. And I just like go along with whatever silly things they want until finally I'm like, yes, I get to do it. Because I leave my ego at home when I go to work. I kind of don't care. Like, I don't give a crap if my name is on the thing at work. I work there. Everyone knows me. Right? Like, I'm not a big deal at work. And that's fine.
So it's sort of a social hack in that case.
Yeah, I guess so. Like, I just want to be best friends with the developers, so they're very comfortable. They're like, hey, can I show you this thing? Thank God yes, please, show me your thing. Yeah, I would love to come to your desk. And if that means like letting my boss rewrite my like other talk like 3 separate times before I went on, and she actually had me put it back to the exact way it was in the beginning. I'm like, you realize that's the first draft? And she's like, I don't know, go do it. Just like slowly wear them down with kindness. For me, that works well. If you have suggestions, I'd love to hear them, because you actually do this professionally. Maybe we could talk after. Cool. Does anyone else have questions? Yeah. And just so you know, I'm friendly and I have cards and I answer emails and I do those things. So like, just talk to me the whole conference. I love talking.
So when I should summarize your talk into one sentence, I would say, put more money in security. So, but now it comes the problem, because then we ask the usability guys and they say, yeah, please respect usability from the very first beginning and do usability trainings and put them for free. And afterwards, the efficiency people say, yeah, efficiency first from the very first beginning, and efficiency trainings from the first moment. But at the end, we have cost, and we have to respect this. So, but now comes the question: what is the most valuable thing we should recommend to projects? I mean, we can't recommend them to do this all. You have to do free trainings, one person for security. On each sprint, you need to pay a penetration tester, and on each sprint, you do this and this and this, and it's just too much. I mean, we cannot spend so much resources on the project.
So the further right you go in the, can I go back in my slides for a minute? I'm sorry, I'm just gonna. So this is like a different talk that I do all the time. So the further right you go, the more expensive it is. So when you call me at 4 a.m. with an incident, that's the pink part, I am very angry, and I'm gonna make you write me a blank check. I'm super pissed. I'm gonna charge you whatever I can think of that you will go for. But if you have me go in your design and look at your design for 3 hours and tell you, oh, well, I see the problem there, it's cheaper, right? And so what I've done, like one place I actually quit, I resigned over it because they just had me doing incident response all the time. Like, do you understand I have to do incident response all the time? Because you won't let me push left. Like, come on. Like, let me just give like workshops. Just like let me off one afternoon a week to just teach developers security. Come on. And they're just like, they're really resistant. They're really afraid of change. And then now they emailed me last week and asked me to help them hire a penetration tester. I'm like, why would someone come work for you? Anyway, the point of the story is that, yeah, I've actually had a lot of people talk about it and ask me, like, we don't have enough money for all of these things, what should we do? I would say the first thing you should do is give your developers a dynamic scanner, like Zap, it's free. I have a video on the internet, I can send you a link. You can just watch a video, it's like 1 hour. If you're a software developer, it's easier. And then just get them to find all the low-hanging fruit. And that means like that's the easiest stuff to find, get them to fix it. That's like your cheapest bang for your buck. That's what I would start with. I'm also doing, like, I'm writing another talk right now where it's like, what to do if you don't have enough money to do an AppSec program. But like that's later. It's not, I don't have the pretty memes yet. Does anyone, yeah, there? You can just talk loud.
Okay, last question because coffee break is waiting, but
But I'll be there for coffee break.
Perfect. Yes, first of all, thank you for your talk.
Oh, thank you for having
It
me.
was very informative. I'm working as a security consultant and mostly perform penetration tests. And many of these penetration tests are performed in the financial sector. We mostly communicate directly with the AppSec team, and they have some requirements like that an application that includes a SQL injection vulnerability cannot be go into production. And as you said,
Probably
most...
smart. It's probably a good call.
Yeah,
right?
that's good. Yeah, absolutely. But the problem is that the penetration tests are often pushed to the end of the development cycle, life cycle.
Yeah.
And then shortly before the actual release date, the planned release date, the penetration test is performed.
Yep.
And then sometimes critical vulnerabilities are
found.
arise. Yeah.
And then they say they'll fix it, and then they don't.
Well, then the AppSec team, which has these requirements from their CISO, for instance, tell the developer guys that they cannot go live with this version of of the code that they developed. You mentioned that the AppSec team should not be a showstopper and should not tell...
No, I think I misexplained.
Okay, so just my question is, how would you combine between, well, such requirements and trying to still keep a good relationship with the developers?
Okay, so one, you want to do testing earlier. So what I like to do usually, like when I consult, so I try to talk them into letting me show up really early. So, oh, you have a stable build? Great, I'll be there tomorrow. And I just do quick scans and like a quick one over with like 1 day of testing, and then just like give them the ugliest report ever where I just throw up onto the page. And then I'm like, I want all that shit fixed because I'm gonna come back next month for real. And then they have time to fix most of those things, and then when I come back, it's way better. And then their boss thinks they look cooler because he's like, Tanya only found 7 things. I'm like, that's right, I only found 7 things, or 30 a month ago, but they fixed them, right? And then the developers are really happy, the relations are really good because I gave them a head start. And then they actually release an app that's secure. That's what I like to do. So I try to do like a quick, really dirty test where I'm not finding everything and there's no guarantees, and then much better at the end. That is what I usually try to do. It's not always possible because when you're getting paid, especially if it's PCI compliance, which is what you might be talking about, they're just like, we just want to check the box. We don't give a crap, right? Like not necessarily like for the places hiring you, but a lot of them, they just need to check that box so that they can run the credit cards, and that's all they care about. And I think compliance is not always the best way to ensure security. And by that I mean a lot. But it's hard to motivate people, right? It's really hard. I don't know what the answer is to that.